Well, Kamala Harris has a major problem. Tonight is the big debate, probably the only debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. In the polling data nationally, they are dead even, which means that if the election were held today, almost certainly Donald Trump wins. That is a huge problem for her. We're going to talk about why this is such a big problem in a second. First, your reminder, the Daily Wire's first ever theatrical release, Am I Racist, from Matt Walsh, is hitting theaters nationwide this Friday. It's awesome, guys. The movie's great. Theaters are selling out across the country with more screens added every single day. Get your tickets and showtimes now at amiracist.com. Matt is a stone cold sociopath, as my friend Jeremy Boring likes to say, and he brings all of those skills to bear. It's an amazing thing. Go check it out, amiracist.com. Bring all your friends this weekend to go see it. Alrighty, so as we say, Kamala Harris is in serious trouble. The current election polling shows that she is running about dead even with him in pretty much all of the swing states. That's not going to be enough. The polls tend to undersample Trump voters. They tend not to encompass all of the so-called low propensity voters that Trump brings in. Kamala Harris, in order to win the election, probably has to win the popular vote by at least 3 points. If this election is a dead heat in the popular vote, or if she just slightly beats Trump in the popular vote, with everybody from California and New York voting, that means that in the swing states, she's probably not going to have enough votes. And she is feeling the pressure, which is why yesterday she finally, at long last, brought out her policy page. Now, the problem for Kamala Harris is this. If her policies look like Joe Biden's policies, every single person is going to look at her and say, Joe Biden is the worst president of the modern era, which is why he was losing to Donald Trump so heavily, not just because he was senile, but also because he's a very bad president and his policies stink. So if her policies look like his policies, she's toast. If her policies don't look like his policies, she has to explain why. And there's one thing Kamala Harris is awful at, and that is explaining. She has no capacity to explain anything, which is why when asked any question at any time, she immediately starts to babble like a fifth grader who didn't read the book. She immediately reverts to explaining not what she believes about an issue, but the importance of the issue. So if you ask her, for example, why she has shifted on her mandatory gun buybacks, she won't explain her prior position, why it was wrong and why her new position is right. She'll explain the importance of why gun violence is so terrible in American society. It's weird, and it doesn't answer the question. The problem is that she's been running on vibes, and the vibes have now run out. It was bound to happen sooner or later for a couple of reasons. One, the American people, I think, really are smarter than this. At a certain point, they want the policy. The thing about President Trump, everybody on the left looks at Trump and they say, well, yeah, but he's vague and he word salad. Yes, but we know what his presidency looked like. So the reality of this election is very simple. Donald Trump is running for a second term because he's saying, look at my first term. And Kamala Harris is running for Joe Biden's second term by saying, do not look at my first term. That is the signal difference between the two campaigns. Trump is saying, look at what I did when I was president, and then do you want that again? And Kamala Harris is saying, don't look. Whatever you do, don't look at the last 3.5 years. Don't look at that. This is why Trump has an advantage in the election, because his argument is super simple. I was already president, and it was better. And Kamala Harris's argument is a little more complex. Her argument is, sure, I was vice president. That's how I gained my credibility. The only reason you know who I am is because I'm Joe Biden's vice president, but I really have nothing to do with him. But also, I'm kind of responsible for the good stuff, but not responsible for the bad stuff. And I was deeply involved in the most important decisions, but not so involved that I can be held accountable for those decisions. It's a pretty discombobulated campaign when you get right down to it, which is why the only thing that the vibes were really about was just shoving the old man off the back of the boat. The truth is, Joe Biden always should have been looking over his shoulder because, the reality is you never know who's standing behind you, ready to shove you off the deck of the boat. And that's also true for you in the digital age. Someone is right over your shoulder, snooping on you every time you connect to an unencrypted network, whether you're sipping overpriced coffee at a hipster cafe or staying at a hotel or killing time at the airport. Your online data is about as secure as a chocolate teapot. Any hacker on the same network can gain access to and steal your personal data. We are talking passwords, bank logins, credit card details, all the things. You know what? It doesn't take a tech genius to do that. Some cheap hardware is all that's necessary. A smart 12-year-old could pull it off. Let that sink in. Your data is valuable, folks. Hackers can make up to $1,000 per person selling personal info on the dark web. That's why I use ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the internet. It's so secure, it would take a hacker with a supercomputer over 1 billion years to crack through. It works on all your devices too. Phones, laptops, tablets, you name it. ExpressVPN's got you covered. Look, in a world where big tech and big government are constantly trying to erode privacy, tools like ExpressVPN aren't just convenient, they are necessary. That's why I use ExpressVPN every single time I'm working outside my home or office. It's why I'm recommending it to you. Protect your online privacy today. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben. That's expressvpn.com/Ben. Get 3 extra months for free with that exclusive link, expressvpn.com/Ben. That's really all it was about. They needed to shove that old man off the back of the boat, and they needed to supplant him with somebody who is younger and fresher faced and better looking, and then hope that you don't notice that she has all the same positions and in fact was the co-captain of the boat before they shoved the old man off the back of the boat. So yesterday she released her policy page and it's basically empty trash. There's another problem, by the way. The New Republic points out, quote, the Harris campaign is only now belatedly realizing this is a problem. On Sunday, they finally added an issues section to her website. It includes a slew of policies the campaign has previously outlined, as well as sections on reproductive and civil rights. Unfortunately for Harris, its release was undermined by a simple but telling error. The page's source code revealed that parts of the platform were copied directly from Biden's campaign page. Ooh, oh no. So for the lady who has to campaign on not having anything to do with Joe Biden, it turns out that actually her entire platform is copied directly from Joe Biden. So much so that her team was too lazy to even rewrite the source code. They just cut from one and they put it in the other, which is amazing. Even the New Republic, again, the New Republic wants her to win. They want her to win, and here's what they write today. This is dangerous territory for Harris, given that the Times poll found that more than 60% of voters wanted the next president to represent a major change from Biden, and only a quarter felt that Harris represented that change. That makes sense, given that she's his vice president, but it means she should be working overtime to distinguish herself from her boss. This is Alex Shepard writing over at the New Republic. And this has become the sort of talking point for people who want Kamala Harris to win, is that she needs to cut Joe Biden loose. That's a direct quote from Jonathan Chait. Jonathan Chait writes for New York Magazine. He has an entire piece titled, Kamala Harris Should Cut Joe Biden Loose. Quote, Kamala Harris is navigating a tricky dilemma, according to the New York Times. She will try to promote herself as a change candidate without criticizing President Biden. I have no reason to doubt this accurately conveys the calculus within the Harris campaign. My question is, why is this a struggle? Why not directly repudiate unpopular Biden positions? Joe Biden is literally one person. He lives in a safe state. Harris doesn't have to worry about forfeiting his vote. Even the universe of people who are personally loyal to Biden and might take offense at slights to his accomplishments consists entirely of partisan Democrats who will vote for the Democrat at the end of the day. Rather than trying to balance loyalty to Biden against catering to the desires of the electorate, Harris's strategy should focus entirely on catering to the public with no attention whatsoever to Biden's feelings. This ignores a simple fact, which is that the Democratic Party represents these positions. It is not just Joe Biden. Joe Biden was, as a politician, I use the past tense because he's no longer with us. Joe Biden was a politician who always and forever took his flag and planted it in the middle of the Democratic parade. So wherever the parade moved, he was always dead center of the parade. That was always his shtick. Joe Biden was never a leader in terms of thought in the Democratic Party. He was never the edgy guy like Bernie Sanders. He was never a visionary like Barack Obama. He wasn't any of those people. Joe Biden was always a typical corrupt Democratic politician who simply went wherever the prevailing winds in the Democratic Party blew. So in the 1990s, he was very anti-crime, so much so that he co-sponsored the 1994 crime bill. And by the time we hit 2020, he was suddenly Black Lives Matter. How does that happen? It wasn't an evolution. It's that he moves his flag all over the field and plants it wherever the Democratic Party is. So attempting to repudiate Joe Biden's positions on these issues is in fact repudiating the Democratic Party position. It's the only thing Joe Biden was ever good at, was putting his finger in the air, figuring out which way the wind was blowing, and then moving in that direction. Joe Biden is a weather vane of a politician. And so if you repudiate the weather vane, what do you end up with? Does Jonathan Chait want her to run as a moderate, or does he want her to run as a Bernie Sanders radical? What exactly does he want her to do? And the problem is, if she runs as a moderate, she is running directly against her own record, because Kamala Harris is very much like Joe Biden as a politician. She has sort of more radical instincts than Joe Biden. Joe Biden's older, he's from a different generation. She has very much AOC, San Francisco leftist instincts, politically speaking, as we'll talk about in a moment. However, she is, as a politician, extremely manipulative, and she moves exactly on the map where she thinks the Democratic Party needs to be at any given time, or where they are at any given time. So she'll be the most left-leaning member of the United States Senate. She'll rush in the front of that parade in 2019. And then the minute that it turns out that the country doesn't like that stuff, she'll try to move over back toward the middle. So what exactly is it that she can repudiate? The answer is nothing. She can't repudiate any of this. But Thomas Friedman is telling her to do the same thing. Thomas Friedman, the most cloddish and doltish of all foreign policy columnists, signs into chat to explain what he thinks is the plan for Kamala Harris. He says the 23 words Harris needs to say to win. Quote, Joe and I got a lot of things right, but we got some things wrong too. And here is what I have learned. For my money, says Thomas Friedman, uttering those 23 words or something like them is the key for Kamala Harris to win Tuesday's debate against Donald Trump and the election. Utter them and she will hugely improve her chances to win more of the undecided voters in this tight race. Fail to utter them or continue to disguise her policy shifts with the incoherent statement she used in the CNN interview that while her positions might have changed on fracking and immigration, quote, my values have not changed, and she will struggle. Madam VP, says Thomas Friedman. Again, Thomas Friedman wants her to win. He hates Donald Trump with the fiery, burning passion of 1,000 suns. He says, Madam VP, if you say your positions have changed, but your values haven't, what does that even mean? And what should we expect from your presidency? Your values or your actions? Our latest poll shows too many voters still don't know. Okay, the problem is, if she says the thing he wants her to say, she loses the election. If she says, we got a lot of things right, but we got a bunch of things wrong, and here's what I learned, Donald Trump is going to say, you got those things wrong because you are bad at the job, and you shouldn't be offered a second chance given your record. The minute she says that, she's toast. So she's stuck in a box. Realistically speaking, if the American people vote on policy and not on vibes, she's going to lose. It is that simple. If they vote on policy and not on vibes, she is in serious trouble. And if you look at the platform that she just released, her platform is not only at odds with her past positions, it's at odds with reality. If you read her platform, for example, she says she wants to cut taxes for the middle class. By what? Repudiating the Trump tax cuts? Trump's tax cuts heavily favored the middle class, but she wants that to expire. Can she explain that? She says she's going to bring down costs in her platform. How is she going to do that? By directing her administration to crack down on anti-competitive practices that let big corporations jack up prices and undermine the competition that allows all businesses to thrive while keeping prices low for consumers. There's one problem. The New York Times Siena College poll that shows that she's trailing shows Americans don't like price controls. They don't like her plans on so-called price gouging. She touts on her campaign page the bipartisan infrastructure law, the Inflation Reduction Act, the American Rescue Plan. All of that is the inflationary fuel that has driven us to 40-year highs in that category. She also suggests that she is going to enshrine the Equality Act, which is a wildly overreaching measure designed to basically outlaw private religious practice in the United States, so long as you do it in a business setting. You know, when you see Kamala Harris's policy positions rolled out this way, you wonder, does anyone truly believe this? Are you being deceived? Well, there's one thing you can't afford to be deceived about, and that, of course, is life insurance. Because if you don't have it and then you plot, your family is in trouble. You always need to be thinking about the future. And now is an excellent time to think about your family's financial future. Enter Policy Genius, the country's leading online insurance marketplace. They're experts at helping you secure your family's financial future faster than Kamala Harris can change those policy positions. Even if you already have a life insurance policy through work, it might not offer enough protection for your family's needs. It might not follow you if you leave your job. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million in coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid those unnecessary medical exams, which is awesome, right? Their platform combines cutting-edge technology with human expertise. You get access to quotes from top insurers, you find the best rates, you receive guidance from licensed professionals throughout the process. Remember, Policy Genius works for you, not the insurance companies. Their recommendations are based on your needs, not commission structures. Let Policy Genius help you plan for your family's future, because true peace of mind comes from knowing you've taken care of what matters most. Head on over to policygenius.com/Shapiro. Click the link in the description, get your free life insurance quotes, see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/Shapiro. Beyond that, she's now claiming that she wants not a mandatory gun buyback. She says she doesn't want that. But she says, quote, she won't stop fighting so Americans have the freedom to live safe from gun violence in our schools, communities, and places of worship. She will ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. And then she says she'll continue to invest in funding law enforcement. But she is a person who was a defund the police person back in 2019, 2020. She says she's going to secure our borders and fix our broken immigration. Says, does anyone believe this crap? She's not going to do any of this. I think my favorite part of her newfound platform is her statement on foreign policy, which is just hilarious. Quote, Vice President Harris is ready to be commander-in-chief on day one. She has helped restore American leadership on the world stage, strengthened our national security through her travels to 21 countries and meetings with more than 150 world leaders, defended American values and democracy, and advanced America's interests. One of my favorite tricks in modern politics is where politicians talk about how many countries they visited. Congratulations. I'm glad that you got a stamp on your passport, lady. But I noticed that there's a giant war in the middle of Europe and another giant war in the Middle East, and you're the Vice President of the United States. My favorite part of this is she says, she visited the Korean demilitarized zone to affirm our unwavering commitment to South Korea in the face of North Korean threats. Do you remember that visit? It was a complete botchery when she went to the DMZ, like a complete bleep show. Then she says, 5 days before Russia attacked Ukraine, she met with President Zelensky to warn him about Russia's plans to invade. Wow, she warned him? Well, whoop-de-frickin-do. Like, well done. You warned him, and then we've had, since then, a 3-year-long war, I noticed. So, yeah, that was great. Good job on the warning. Also, the guy who you were serving under suggested that if Russia made a minor incursion into Ukraine without defending or defining exactly what that meant, then it would probably be fine. She says, quote, Vice President Harris will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to protect U.S. forces and interests from Iran and Iran-backed terrorist groups. So that's weird because a bunch of American troops have died in the Middle East in recent months, and you've done pretty much nothing, as it turns out. She and President Biden are working to end the war in Gaza such that Israel is secure, the hostages are released, the suffering in Gaza ends, and the Palestinian people can realize their right to dignity, security, freedom, and self-determination. She and President Biden are working around the clock to get a hostage deal and a ceasefire deal done. How's that working out for you, by the way? Your stupid policy of trying to embargo weapons to our ally in the middle of a hostage situation. How's that working out? Is that working out great? While Hamas sits in their tunnels, the hostages, has that worked out well? And this is the point. She can say whatever aspirational nonsense she wants on her website. In the end, she is responsible for the administration currently in power. And if she's not, what is she doing there? She didn't win a single primary vote. The only reason that she's even the nominee is because she's the vice president of the United States. So in the end, what is the left with? They're left with vibes. So this turned into a bit of a debate between me and Mark Cuban. So Mark Cuban, of course, the billionaire former owner of the Dallas Mavericks. He's now minority owner of the Dallas Mavericks. So the other day, there was a clip that we played on the show of Kamala Harris at a really, really left-wing spices shop in Pennsylvania, going and hugging some crying lady. We played it on the show and I made fun of it because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This whole vibes, Momala, we need a hug from our president. I'm a hug. Yeah. So I tweeted, if you want your presidential candidate to hug you, please seek psychological help. Because guess what? I have a family. I have lots of people who hug me every single day. I have 4 little kids. They hug me every single day. And you know what? It's great. I have a wife. We hug all the time. It's wonderful. I have parents. We hug too. I have sisters. We hug. I have nieces and nephews. Lots of hugs all around. You know who I don't give a about being hugged by? Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Kamala Harris, Doug Emhoff, Tim Walz. I don't want any of those people hugging me. Just like I don't want my plumber hugging me. These are people who are delegated a power to do a thing. I don't need them to come over and hug me. I need them to do their job. Kamala Harris has been vice president of the United States for the last 3.5 years, and she has presided over the complete meltdown of American foreign policy, the cleaning out of the base of our military, the fraying of the social fabric in the United States, the emptying out of the American middle class. She's presided over all of those things. What do I give a crap if she's hugging randos at a spice shop in Pennsylvania? But this is what they have to run on. They have to run on the vibes. So Mark Cuban, aforementioned Kamala Harris supporter, he has a habit of ignoring everything bad that Kamala Harris says and pretending it doesn't exist. So he'll go on national TV and he will freely acknowledge that her idiotic idea to tax unrealized capital gains would destroy the American economy. And then he'll just go, well, it's never going to happen, so who cares? Anyway, so he tweets back at me, quote, if you don't want a presidential candidate capable of hugging, please seek psychological help. Empathy and kindness are skills that are possessed by great leaders in 2024. Okay, number one, really, really solid straw man there. Solid straw man. I mean, like, first of all, capable of, I said, if you are like walking around wanting your presidential candidate to hug you, you're a sad person and you need a family and or a psychologist. So I tweeted back at him, I would imagine nearly all presidential candidates, being human, are capable of hugging. I'd like a presidential candidate capable of something more, like perhaps not getting 13 American soldiers murdered in Afghanistan or creating 40-year highs in inflation or ass-kissing Iran. This is the debate. The debate is, then I added, I hope she gives you a hug while she taxes your unearned capital gains at 25%. Okay, I'm just going to put it out there that my reply is better than his original statement. The fact that he believes that the signal quality he is searching for in a politician is empathy and kindness as opposed to competence is amazing. If we are a country that has now been relegated to needing a hug from the people who run for president, to seeking spiritual fulfillment from the people who run for president, it is precisely the opposite that the founders sought to establish. The founders did not see the government as a thing to hug. The government is not your mommy, and the government is not your daddy. You don't need a momala. You don't need a daddala. You don't need any of these things. What you need is a mom and a dad, and then you need a president very far away who does the things described in Article 2 of the Constitution of the United States. Those are the things that you need. And if you are seeking spiritual solace, emotional fulfillment in a candidate like Kamala Harris, the emptiest vessel in the history of the modern American Republic, let me suggest once again, you need psychological help. And that's true, by the way, on all sides of the aisle. If you're sitting around, you're like, I need a hug from Donald Trump. That's what I'm looking for, a hug from Donald Trump. I don't want a hug from Donald Trump. I want Donald Trump threatening America's enemies and freeing up America's economy. That's what I want Donald Trump doing. I need a hug from Donald Trump. This is ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. And if we're a country that seeks hugs from our leaders, joy and hugs, you want to talk about the cult of dictatorship? Look at the propaganda in any fascist state, any communistic state. It is all about the joy and the hugs. It is, every poster is the great leader hugging children. I don't want these people anywhere near my kids. That is not their job. Kamala is just not capable of doing this job. But you need to be capable of doing your job, and that means staying healthy. You may have noticed that I'm moving all around the country these days. A lot going on. It's election season. When I fly this much, it's easy to get unhealthy, and this is why I try to, exercise, get enough sleep, eat well. Very difficult, but one thing that's not difficult is adding balance of nature to my day. Imagine trying to eat 31 different fruits and veggies every day. Sounds miserable and time-consuming. With balance of nature fruits and veggies, there's never been a more convenient dietary supplement to ensure you get a wide variety of fruits and veggies daily. Balance of nature takes fruits and veggies, they freeze-dry them, they turn them into a powder, and they put them into a capsule. You take your fruit and veggie capsules every day, your body knows exactly what to do. And it's kosher, which means when I make that protein smoothie in the morning, just dump some balance of nature in there, I'm good to go. Go to balanceofnature.com, use promo code Shapiro for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer, plus get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com. Promo code Shapiro. Nutrition is like the number one ingredient to a healthy lifestyle, even more so than exercise. Balance of Nature can help you do it. Head on over to balanceofnature.com. Promo code Shapiro. Get 35% off your first order as a preferred customer and that free bottle of fiber and spice. I just want them to do their job. And this is the problem. Kamala Harris is not capable of doing this job. She's not. And this has been proved over and over again. It's a terrible story for Kamala Harris yesterday. Emerges via CNN. Andrew Kaczynski, who's actually an excellent reporter, he digs into kind of the past of all candidates on all sides of the aisle. He really is fair. I think that Andrew Kaczynski and I disagree on politics, but that doesn't matter. He's a good reporter over at CNN. So he has dug up a fact via K-File, which is that Kamala Harris told the ACLU in 2019 that she supports cuts to ICE funding and providing gender transition surgery to detained minors. So if you bring like a 13-year-old kid across the border, and that kid wants American taxpayers to fund surgery, she wants taxpayers to pay for that. Even CNN's Aaron Burnett was like, what now? What now? Remember, this is Kamala Harris. She's a radical lib, very, very far to the left. Here's CNN even being shocked by how far left Kamala Harris was running in 2019, 2020.
She said on immigration, she made this open-ended pledge to end immigrant detention. She said she supported taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She also said she supported
taxpayer-funded gender transition surgeries for detained migrants. She actually said she supported that.
She both wrote and answered in the affirmative when she was asked this. Oh. And she said she also supported it for federal prisoners. Now, she also pledged to slash immigration detention by 50%, close all family and private facilities, and decrease funding for ICE, and then the end ICE detainers with local law enforcement.
I mean, these are things that, it would be hard to think that you would come up with taxpayer funding gender transitions for detained migrants, and yet this, as you say, written and verbally.
I mean, that's a pretty amazing thing. Even CNN is kind of stunned by that. Why does that matter? Because when it comes to immigration, she's now running as a hardliner on immigration, which is absurd. It's all crazy. Now, I know that Republicans tend to get distracted by shiny objects. The big dumb story of yesterday was this idea that Haitians in Springfield, Ohio are like eating cats and birds from the park or whatever. You don't have to do that, guys. The illegal immigration problem is a massive, massive issue. There are, in fact, enormous issues in Springfield, Ohio that have been highlighted by the current vice presidential candidate and senator from Ohio, J.D. Vance, before. It turns out that when you have a town of 60,000 people and it's inundated with 20,000 Haitian immigrants, that might actually have a real impact on the social services in the city, on the culture of the city. Like these are very real things. You don't have to go to, they're killing cats and eating them or stealing neighborhood pets or whatever. So yesterday on the internet, there was this bizarre story that got blown all out over the internet, because this is what happens, about Haitian immigrants supposedly eating cats or something. Haitian immigrants going to the park and picking geese out of the pond and eating them. Apparently, there's no evidence of that. So the Springfield police have said, yeah, that's not a thing. We have no reports of pets being stolen, for example. There was a social media post originally from a Springfield Facebook group that went viral in recent days, according to the Springfield News-Sun. The original poster did not cite firsthand knowledge of an incident. Instead, they claimed their neighbor's daughter's friend had lost her cat and found it hanging from a branch at a Haitian neighbor's home, being carved up to be eaten. The poster also claimed that rangers and police told them they have been doing it at Snyder Park too, with ducks and geese. The Springfield police were like, yeah, that didn't happen. Okay, but you don't have to go there. You don't have to go there. This is the part where, again, don't get distracted by dumb, shiny objects if you are a Republican. The reality is that the residents of Springfield, Ohio, are pretty clearly frustrated with the situation over there, because it turns out that simply importing hundreds of thousands of people from a nation with a culture very different from America's on the basis of temporary protected status, giving them TPS status, is a very, very bad idea. Here, for example, is one member of the Springfield, Ohio community complaining to the city commission. This is in August.
It is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard. And I can't. Look at me, I weigh 95 pounds. I couldn't defend myself if I had to. My husband is elderly, and last night, after living in this home for 45 years, he said, Noelle, guess what? It's time to pack up and move. He said, we can't do this anymore. He said, it's killing both of us mentally. I don't understand what you expect of us as citizens.
And that is the question, right? That's the question. Well, things are a disaster area in Springfield, Ohio, for a variety of reasons. But one thing that doesn't have to be a disaster is your business. Time is your most precious resource. I'm constantly on the go, so I'm constantly looking for ways to maximize efficiency. Whether it's mobile ordering food to avoid lines or automating routine tasks, I'm all about those time savers. But you know what used to eat up way too much of my time? Mailing and shipping. That's where Stamps.com comes in. It's the time saver you need if you're spending hours dealing with legal documents, checks, or marketing materials. With Stamps.com, you can cut down hours spent on mailing and shipping. You can do it on your timeline, not anyone else's. Being able to run your business on your own schedule, that's freedom. From mom and pop shops to multi-location organizations, Stamps.com handles all your mailing and shipping needs wherever, whenever. Plus, if you sell products online, you can seamlessly connect with every major marketplace and shopping cart. And here's the kicker. You can access USPS and UPS mailing services right from your computer or phone anytime, day or night, no lines, no traffic, no waiting. It's like having a 24/7 post office at your fingertips. Free up more time for your important business with Stamps.com. Sign up Stamps.com, enter code Shapiro, get a special offer. It includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and free digital scale. No long-term commitments, no contracts. That's Stamps.com, code Shapiro. Stamps.com, code Shapiro. So, J.D. Vance had been targeting this for a while. Go back a few days, September 3rd, go back 1 week. The New York Times had a piece titled, quote, How an Ohio Town Landed in the Middle of an Immigration Debate. It has been more than a year since the fateful morning last August when outside Springfield in southwestern Ohio, a minivan veered into oncoming traffic and rammed into a school bus on the first day of class, killing an 11-year-old boy and injuring 23 other children. Soon, it emerged the driver of the minivan was not a longtime resident, but one of thousands of immigrants from Haiti who had recently settled in the area. He was driving with a foreign license not valid in Ohio. The stage was set for another fraught chapter in the debate over immigration in America, this one magnified because J.D. Vance, the state's junior senator, would soon become the Republican vice presidential nominee. Haitians were new to the region. During the last census in 2020, a little more than 58,000 people lived in Springfield, a town at the crossroads of America that had fallen on hard times and shed population as opportunity slipped away. But it has changed dramatically in recent years as a boom in manufacturing and warehouse jobs attracted a swelling wave of immigrants, mainly from Haiti. City officials estimate as many as 20,000 Haitians have arrived, most of them since the pandemic. At the first city commission meeting after the bus crash, angry residents packed the chambers and demanded answers. How do you know we aren't getting criminals and rapists? Said a man in a blue Harley-Davidson t-shirt. Who can stop them from coming here? Had they been screened? Or are they going to use their driver's licenses to vote? The city manager, Brian Heck, explained the Haitians were lawfully in the country, and the police chief Allison Elliott said Haitians were not responsible for the city's years-long struggle with crimes such as retail theft. But nothing could quell the outrage. By the way, they were only in the country legally because of Kamala Harris. Here is a flashback of Kamala Harris bragging about extending temporary protected status to over 100,000 Haitian immigrants.
That is why, also, starting with our administration, we gave TPS, temporary protected status, to Haitian migrants, 55,000. And then more recently, we extended temporary protected status to over 100,000 Haitian migrants for that very reason, that they need support, they need protection.
Okay, so she is taking credit for all of this. Now, the New York Times is trying to play it that these immigrants have revitalized the region. The reality is that that's not true. The reality is that if you open a manufacturing plant in Springfield, Ohio, there are a lot of people who are not immigrants who will come and take those jobs. It is not that you need Haitian immigrants to come take those jobs, unless they're undercutting the wage base or something in Springfield, Ohio. And there are tons of people in the United States. This is the country of 340 million people. You don't need people who are given TPS, 20,000 of them, to suddenly show up in Springfield, Ohio, from a country that does not have a ton in common culturally with the United States, any country that does not share a ton in common culturally with the United States, and just inundate a town and suddenly become overnight 1/4 of the city's population. Right? Of course, that's going to create social friction and a massive draw on social services, which is what you have seen. According to the New York Times, the community health clinic saw a 13-fold increase in Haitian patients between 2021 and 2023, from 115 to 1,500, overwhelming its staff and budget. Again, there are serious downsides to all of this. Haitians had social security numbers and work permits thanks to a federal program that offered them temporary protection in the United States. Some have been living for years in places like Florida, where there's a thriving Haitian community. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with immigrating to the United States legally. Not only that, if you're coming here to work, you're coming here to be part of the American dream, I'm all for it. But there's no way to screen people at the southern border. When you just give people temporary protected status and you let them into the country without any vetting, without knowing what their educational level is, what their skill set is, are they going to be a draw on public services, what their family structure is, no country worth its salt does that. That is the point. And pretending these issues don't exist doesn't make them go away. Apparently, at the Rocking Horse Community Health Center, a federally subsidized clinic that does not turn anyone away, a surge in Haitians has caused a consultation that normally takes 15 minutes to take as long as 45 because of the language barrier. We lost productivity. We had a huge burnout of staff, says Yamimi Tigala, the chief executive officer. This is not sustainable. And by the way, again, it is not just a bunch of hard right Republicans who are objecting to all of this. Here is the mayor and city manager saying the city services in Springfield, Ohio are collapsing. This is like a couple of months ago.
Well, what we've seen is just such a quick increase of our population over the last 5 years. You know, like you said, up to 15 to 20,000 immigrants have come across and into our community. This has overwhelmed our safety services and caused great concern for our community.
You know, when we see a 25% increase over a 3-year period, we're a community, we do not have the capacity to sustain that. And it's taxing our infrastructure. It's taxing public safety. It's taxing our schools. It's taxing healthcare. We do not have the capacity to sustain it. And without additional federal assistance or support, again, communities like Springfield will fail.
Those are the people in charge. And those are people, that's Brian Heck, the person I quoted a second ago. That last person is Brian Heck saying that the community resources are going to fail. That is a person who is trying to assure citizens that the people who are there were not there illegally. So these are not rabid right-wingers who hate immigrants or anything like this. These are real problems that have been facilitated by the Biden administration, and everyone knows it. I mean, hell, Alejandro Mayorkas, literally yesterday, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, he says that you have to stop criticizing immigration in strong terms because people will die if you do that. Well, you know what I noticed? I noticed you lost 300,000, apparently, immigrant minors. What happened to those people? How about the people who have died as a result of illegal immigrant criminals being allowed into the country? We can name many of those people like Lake and Riley. Here's Alejandro Mayorkas doing his shtick.
As the son of Jewish and Cuban immigrants and of a mother who survived the Holocaust, what do you think? What goes through your mind when you hear Donald Trump, the former president, say that immigrants are poisoning the blood of the country?
So I'm going to detach it from the individual, as I must, given legal constraints. I abide scrupulously to the Hatch Act requirements. That rhetoric that I have heard espoused by people is odious. I don't know what to say. People have died because of that rhetoric. My mother's family, her father's 8 brothers, parents, sister, died because of that rhetoric.
Okay, give me a break. I'm sorry, give me a break. This is the shtick. And then she's trying to claim she's a border hawk, Kamala Harris. She's not a border hawk, and everybody knows it. And the same is true of Afghanistan. Donald Trump should hold her to account on Afghanistan. So yesterday, John Kirby, the national security spokesperson, he was asked about the fact that there's now a new House GOP report pointing out how deeply involved Kamala Harris was in the Afghanistan debacle and how badly the United States blew it. John Kirby then proceeded to suggest that the administration had held itself accountable. What, by giving yourself promotions? Literally no one has been fired over that debacle. No one. That's on Kamala Harris. She's the vice president of the United States. She owns that.
Was anyone ever held accountable by the president directly for what happened with the withdrawal in Afghanistan? And if not, remind the audience why not.
We have all held ourselves accountable for the progress of the withdrawal across the administration. And it was a true interagency effort to get those 120,000 people out and to make sure we removed our diplomats and our military personnel safely.
They held themselves accountable for how awesome they did. Donald Trump needs to hold Kamala Harris accountable tonight on the stage. Speaking of which, tonight we are going backstage for the presidential debate between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. That's a debate that could determine America's 47th president. History unfolds tonight. We're inviting you to watch along with us live on Daily Wire Plus as we simulcast the full debate. Once Trump and Harris are done, I, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, Andrew Klavan, Jeremy Boring, we will all break it down for you and separate the fact from the nonsense. Now more than ever, you need to get the truth. This is where you get it. For a limited time, get our Daily Wire Plus presidential deal. 47% off new annual memberships with code FIGHT. That's an awesome deal. We chose 47% because, some of us are fighting to make Donald Trump our 47th president. This election is too important for half-truths and left-wing narratives. Go to dailywire.com/subscribe and use code FIGHT for 47% off new annual Daily Wire Plus memberships. We're working hard throughout this election cycle to bring you all the news you need to know as it happens, but we need your help to do it. Please become a member over at Daily Wire Plus right now and get 47% off. Help us help you. Don't miss our special backstage presidential debate tonight at Daily Wire Plus. So what's going to happen in the debate tonight? Well, some of it's going to matter based on the moderators. The moderators really matter in this one. So the moderators in this one, they're ABC News moderators. I would not expect them to be just or fair. However, the reality is that the demands of the job suggest there will actually be some serious questions asked of Kamala tonight. That's my prediction. I'm going to go against the grain. I think that the moderators are actually going to ask Kamala Harris a couple of actually difficult questions. Why do I think that? Because there's no fresh meat on the Trump bones. It's all been picked over. There's nothing new to say about Donald Trump. Everything you needed to know about Donald Trump, you knew. That's what that New York Times at Siena College poll showed. It showed that only 12% of Americans think that there's more to learn about Donald Trump. They need more information. 1/3 of Americans believe they need to know more about Kamala Harris, which means that is the rich vein to mine. And she's been avoiding questions. Her excuse-making, by the way, on avoiding questions remains truly astonishing. Gina Raimondo, the Secretary of Commerce under Joe Biden, she was asked about Kamala Harris avoiding questions, and she said she's got a punishing schedule. Well, she designs the schedule. That's ridiculous. She's the one who decides it's important to hug people in spice shops rather than answering any questions at all. Here's Gina Raimondo making an absolutely unconvincing defense of Kamala Harris.
She's been impossible to pin down on anything because she hasn't given any access. The American people deserve it. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, and I hear you, but I respectfully disagree. This is a presidential election like no other. She only has a few weeks to do everything, and she's spending her time talking to Americans. She has a punishing schedule, out and about, everywhere, being with the people who she wants to elect her. But I guess, look, tomorrow night it will be on display. It'll be a robust debate.
Robust debate. I mean, again, we'll see what Kamala Harris does in this debate. There are a bunch of dangers for Kamala Harris in this debate. If she word salads it, if she sounds incoherent, if she does the thing that she always does when hit by a perfectly obvious question, and she just starts circling like a drunken bird in the sky around some target below, it's going to be a major problem for her. It will. And all Trump has to do is poke it. All he has to do is say, I don't know what she's talking about. Now, that was a lot of jargon. Let me cut right through this. She has a terrible record. Let me cut right through it. Again, I think the muted mics are going to help Trump. I do. I think that it restricts him from doing the thing that she wanted, which is she wanted to interrupt him and poke him and prod him. And she also wanted him to respond so she could then claim that she was a victim. Oh my God, the big bad man hit me. That's the shtick she wanted to do because she did that with Mike Pence last time, right? I'm talking. I was speaking. She can't do that tonight. We can hope. It's really, I mean, she'll try probably anyway, but it's going to be hard for her to do that. With that said, I honestly think that she's the underdog in the debate tonight. I'm just being honest here. Right? The political interests suggest that I should actually play down expectations for Trump and play up expectations for Harris. I think the most likely scenario is that the debate actually ends with nobody making serious gains. I think the most likely scenario here is she word salads her way through this one. Trump is sort of subdued. He does what he has to do, and the race continues as it was before the debate. But if you're going to game out these sort of spectacular possibilities, the spectacular possibility for Kamala Harris is that she absolutely goes up on the stage. They ask her a question. She bumbles, she stumbles, she doesn't know her own positions, she gets caught in a lie. She gives the "my values haven't changed" routine, and Trump says, so why did your positions? Right? That's the obvious question. If your values didn't change, why did your positions? What changed? And she doesn't have a good answer for that. She apparently is cramming overtime. And the problem for her, she actually does have to cram. And one of the things they say about being an honest person is it's easier to be honest than to be a liar because you don't have to remember your lies. Kamala Harris has lied so many times. She has shifted so many of her positions. She doesn't know her own positions. She doesn't know what they are on any given day. And she switches them over. I mean, Tim Walz literally runs from cameras. He runs from them. He runs from them like he is a wildebeest on the savannah and the lions are chasing him. It's amazing. Every time he is asked a question, he gets up and he motors on out there, arms a-waving like one of those big blow-up things on the side of the freeway from a used car lot. He just runs out of there because he doesn't know her positions either. So she's been cramming, apparently, in preparation for the debate. According to the Washington Post, Harris has spent most of the past 4 days ensconced in Pittsburgh's Omni William Penn Hotel for intensive debate camp, which sounds like the worst camp ever, by the way. Her aides created a mock setup to mimic the layout of the debate studio, cast a veteran Donald Trump stand-in to unleash harsh attacks and offensive comments, and put the vice president through hours of rehearsed questions. I hope they hired Shane Gillis. I feel like that'd be amazing. Just Shane Gillis in the room with Kamala Harris being like, and that's why you're stupid and ugly. And she's I just think that'd be good. Okay, but that's not actually what happened. They probably hired David Plouffe or something to pretend to be Donald Trump. About 330 miles to the east, Trump spent much of the weekend at his golf club in Bedminster, New Jersey, opting for policy sessions with aides and allies instead of traditional practice runs. The former president has participated in about a half dozen of these sessions in recent weeks, reviewing Harris's policy record from her 2020 presidential campaign and practicing how to respond to an expected barrage of attacks on his character. And we talked last Friday. If you want to hear my entire preview of what Donald Trump needs to do, go listen to last Friday's show, in which I explicitly laid out what he needs to do in this debate and what he needs to avoid. The things she needs to avoid, and I'm not sure she can, is stepping on the landmine of her own ignorance. I don't know if she can do that. I don't know if she has the capacity to avoid exposing her own vacuity here. Harris's aides wanted ABC to change the rules according to the Washington Post, so both microphones would remain unmuted throughout the debate, hoping that would encourage Trump to go off script and let Harris issue sharp retorts. Trump's aides were determined to keep the rules in place. Harris's aides fear that Trump will unleash so many dubious statements or attacks during his uninterrupted speaking time that she'll be unable to challenge them all, according to people familiar with her planning, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal strategy. So they are trying now to figure out other ways to parry Trump's attacks. She's already laying out the narrative. The pre-narrative is going to be here from Kamala Harris. Trump, he just lies so much. He just lies so much. He's such a liar. I couldn't even keep up with all of his lies. Well, the truth is that Donald Trump says a lot of things where he bloviates or he overspeaks or he exaggerates, and that's all par for the course. The true liar, the true actual person who sits there and with malice aforethought figures out how to lie is Kamala Harris. But here she was doing another non-adversarial interview with the Ricky Smiley Morning Show. This, by the way, is the reason why she doesn't have time, according to Gina Raimondo, to actually answer tough questions. She's just got a grueling, busy schedule. Here she was trying to explain how tough it will be to debate Donald Trump.
He plays from this really old and tired playbook, right? Where there's no floor for him in terms of how low he will go. And we should be prepared for that. We should be prepared for the fact that he is not burdened by telling the truth. And we should be prepared for the fact that he is probably going to speak a lot of untruths. And ultimately, what I intend to point out is what we many people know, certainly as I'm traveling the country in this campaign, he tends to fight for himself, not for the American people. And I think that's going to come out during the course of the debate.
Okay, if that's the best she's got, that's a problem. Well, the New York Times is hoping for a bit of a different outcome, obviously, in the debate tonight than what happened with Donald Trump and Joe Biden in the first debate. By the way, this is going to be the last debate. There's no more debates. I know everybody's talking about, well, this is the first of a couple. Nope. If the debate ends with no major winner, then neither side really has an incentive to get back in the ring. Trump thinks he's winning, and Kamala doesn't want to be exposed. If Kamala has a good night, she's certainly not going to want to get back in the ring with Trump and give him another shot. And if she has a bad night, she might want it, but Trump ain't going to give it to her. So this is the one and only debate. It's the one and only debate, so get ready for it. The New York Times is already trying to lay out the pre-narrative. The pre-narrative is that Trump is mean to the ladies. Now, here's the problem. Kamala Harris is getting skunked with men. Absolutely destroyed with men. Her actual numbers with men stink because she is running, once again, on the Momala, I'm here to just give hugs. And her male counterparts, the people in the campaign who are supposed to draw in the men, are Weird McWeirdface Tim Walz. He of the flailing arms as though he's signaling a jet to come into the runway. And also speaking about how socialism is neighborliness. That weirdo. They got him. And then they've got Doug Emhoff, who's the most beta of betas who has ever baited. Doug Emhoff, who really just resembles the dog from Up at this point. Hey, look, a squirrel. Ooh. Got that exact affect. It's ridiculous. He is Doug. He's Doug. He's just Doug. In any case, the New York Times is trying to lay out the narrative here that Donald Trump is going to be mean to the ladies. Good luck with this. I mean, they've been trying this forever, that Donald Trump is mean to the ladies. All right. And then if he says something to Kamala Harris that is spicy, it's because she's a lady as opposed to because she's the other person on the stage, which is ridiculous. Donald Trump said some pretty mean things about Joe Biden because he was the other person on the stage. This narrative that Donald Trump is only mean to the ladies, you have to be incredibly stupid to believe this. Donald Trump is mean to everyone who's adversarial to him. This has been true forever, for literally ever. There's a famous interview that he did with Larry King. This is like back in the 90s, where Larry King is like, so show me your adversarial negotiating tactic. And Trump goes, well, I walk into a room and I look across the desk and I say, did you know your breath is just terrible? He's been doing this for 30 years. There's 40, 50 years. The man's 78. Okay, there's nothing new under the sun when it comes to Donald Trump. The attempt to pretend that there's new information emerging about the grave evil that is Donald Trump is one of the dumbest things in American politics. It's truly low IQ stuff. But here's the New York Times. They say, quote, it seems a strange twist of American history. The only man to have run against 2 female nominees in 2 presidential elections is one with a long and explicit record of denigrating women. Well, why is that a strange twist of American history? Democrats are just running a lot of women lately. That's all. Did you think that Abraham Lincoln was going to run against a lot of ladies back in 1860 and 1864? I got the New York Times. Mr. Trump has, of course, treated men with intense bellicosity, launching a blizzard of interruptions against President Biden during their first debate in 2020 and lobbing personal insults at the likes of Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz during the primary in 2016. But a review of his onstage clashes with women shows how, over 9 years in politics, he has honed a playbook of explicitly gendered attacks against both female candidates and journalists that he is likely to draw from on Tuesday when he debates Vice President Kamala Harris. Mr. Trump has used his physical presence and body language to intimidate women. Just ridiculous. The first time he ever spoke of a female presidential candidate on a debate stage, it was to brag about the control he had over her, says the New York Times. Trump was talking about Hillary Clinton and giving her monies. He said, I said, be at my wedding. She came to my wedding. You know why? She had no choice. I gave. He says the same thing about every male politician. But apparently that's sexist now. And they are grasping at straws. They have such problems in this election cycle. Right now, if you had to bet, you got to bet on Trump. You do. That's what the data say. The betting markets say it too. That's why the onus tonight is on Kamala Harris to actually do something to Trump. And that's hard. Trump's a mud monster. Debating Trump has never been an easy task because the normal expectations in a debate are that the person will be answerable for the ideas they say on the stage. Trump has never been subject to those rules, for good or ill, going all the way back to 2015. Trying to shift that now is likely to be unsuccessful. And the attempt by Kamala Harris to introduce herself to the American voters or to shift her positions, I think is going to be unavailing. I think this debate is way more dangerous for Kamala Harris than it is for Trump, which is probably why she was trying to get out of it in the first place. All right, in just 1 second, we'll get to another giant fail by the climate scientists First, if you're not a member, become a member. Use code Shapiro. Check out for 2 months free on all annual plans. Click that link in the description and join us.
Republicans are Nazis. You cannot separate yourselves from the bad white people.
Growing up, I never thought much about race. It never really seemed to matter that much, at least not to me. Am I racist?
I would really appreciate it if you left.
I'm trying to learn. I'm on this journey. If I'm going to sort this out, I need to go deeper undercover.
They gon' say I'm racist.
Joining us now is Matt, certified DEI expert.
Here's my certification. What you're doing is you're stretching out of your whiteness. This is more for you in this field. Is America inherently racist?
The word inherent is challenging there.
I want to rename the George Washington Monument to the George Floyd Monument.
America is racist to its bones.
So inherently.
Yeah, this country is a piece of
white
folks,
white
trash, white supremacy, white woman, white boy.
Is there a black person around here? There's a black person right here. Does he not exist?
They gon' say I'm racist.
Hi, Robin.
Hi, what's your name?
I'm Matt.
I just had to ask who you are because you have to be careful.
Never be too careful.
They gon' say you racist.
Buy your tickets now. In theaters September 13th. Rated PG-13.